Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is it was supposed to be simple in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 26, A Nice Day Out. Humming to herself, Dorothea walked the halls of the palace. From the outside, it might look like she was wandering the halls without a destination in mind, but for the songstress, her purpose was clear. Though Edie might not have approved, she still wanted to help, and while the first attempt might have gone awry, she was still planning on spying for Edelgard. Such were her plans as she spotted the archbishop walking through the halls, a knight following behind and seemingly fussing over her. "Hello there, Lady Byleth," Dorothea greeted, making the archbishop stiffen as she looked up at her. Dorothea." And whatever plans Dorothea had immediately went out the window as she stared at the girl that seemed to be on the verge of tears standing before her. "Are you okay?" "Oh, yes, just got a bit too emotional," Byleth replied, looking away as she rubbed her eyes. "Nothing to worry about." "Are you sure about that? It seems like you might need someone to talk to." "I believe that might be the case," the knight interjected. "Louise, if Dorothea remembered correctly. It might be a good idea if someone her age spoke with her. I was already planning on finding a member of the Ashen Wolves, but if you want to be the one to help her, that would save time." "Well, I can never say no to a cutie in need," Dorothea teased, trying to get Byleth to blush, to little effect. Which really just confirmed that the archbishop needed her. "All right, let's get to it. A day on the town, for you and me. I'm sure the church will be happy to foot the bills, right?" Louise blinked at being addressed, before pausing. Well, I suppose if it's for the archbishop's thrills we can foot the bills." Dorothea glanced over at Byleth, who had her head tilted. "Not your best." Louise couldn't help but pout in response, before a grin came to his face. So you could say my joke has given you chills." Byleth's lips twitched. "Rhyming words isn't a joke, it's just wordplay." But perhaps these can be used to word pay the bills?" Louise asked, finally getting Byleth to let out a laugh. Dorothea, on the other hand. "All right, we're going," she said, placing a hand on Byleth's shoulders to lead her away. "Come on, let's get you a change of clothes so you can move around easier outside of the palace." "Oh, okay," Byleth murmured, well aware that she should argue the point but, in the moment, felt herself getting lost in memories of being comforted by the songstress. "So, what do you feel like doing?" Dorothea asked Byleth after they snuck out of the palace, the archbishop now dressed down to look like a commoner in a simple tunic and skirt, with a bandana on to keep her bright green hair covered. It took a bit of effort to get it all hidden, but Dorothea helped. Well, I haven't eaten since breakfast," Byleth mumbled in response. "Then I know just the place," Dorothea stated, a grin on her face as she took Byleth by the hand. As they walked, Byleth tried to ignore how much her throat clenched. "So, how have things been back at the monastery?" "Busy, what with the whole exchange of power," Byleth muttered in response. "We've also been changing things up." "Oh. Yes, I was actually teaching some of the kids how to read and write, and though I might be archbishop now, I still plan on assisting when I can." I hope this doesn't sound rude, but that's surprising to hear." "It's not rude. I know Rhea was distant, if I'm being generous," Byleth responded, getting Dorothea to laugh. How about you? You were attending the academy before it closed, weren't you?" "That I was," Dorothea said with a sigh as they arrived at the restaurant she was talking about, one that seemed to cheerfully greet the famous songstress, even if they did side-eye Byleth. "I worked hard to get in, and then it closed down." Well, when it opens up again, we'd be glad to have you come again." Thanks for the offer, but I'll have to decline. Though I might have missed out in enjoying my time at the academy, I quite enjoy helping Edie. It's only a shame I wasn't able to find someone back at the monastery before it closed." "I'm sure someone like you will find someone in no time," Byleth responded, ignoring how tight her chest felt. Thank you." Smiling as they were served water, Dorothea kept her eyes on Byleth. "So how about you, anyone special in your life?" Byleth couldn't help but wince in response. Forget I asked." It's okay, it happened a long time ago." I just didn't have any luck with first loves, or second for that matter. Byleth muttered to herself, though it seemed Dorothea heard her. Ah, don't worry, I'm not very lucky in love myself, but I'm still trying, she reassured with a smile. One that turned a little sly. It helps if you happen to like more than one type of fish, as it were. Like, 4 meals? Because I like lots of fish? Dorothea wasn't sure if she was trying to be subtle or if she was being clueless. Either way, best to be a bit blunt. Well, care to tell me about the men who charmed you? Ah, they were both girls. And that immediately put a smile on Dorothea's face. And both of them deserved better than me. Ah, no need to say that, I'm sure they're the ones missing out since you're the Archbishop, Dorothea said, trying to cheer her up, only to see her face immediately become crestfallen. Dorothea was starting to realize she might have misunderstood how those relationships ended, so she went for a subject change instead. Though speaking of, I am a bit curious on what hobbies an archbishop has. Oh, well, I like teaching, even if I'm not as close to my students as I hoped, Byleth said, idly remembering Cyril's response to her leaving. I've also been gardening and cooking. Heh, surprisingly normal hobbies then. You know, I'm also a bit of a cook myself. Byleth remembered how Dorothea had nearly given her food poisoning once. Maybe one day I can try something you make. She also remembered how proud she looked once she was done cooking. I'll keep you to that, Dorothea said, giving her a wink. Byleth smiled in return before the pair ordered their meal while they continued their small talk. Though their conversation slowly drifted towards gossip. You know, I'd be surprised that Sylvain had the balls to flirt with the Archbishop upon first meeting her, but I also heard how he talked about Rhea when we all first arrived at the monastery, so it's not that big of a surprise, Dorothea noted with amusement as they ate. At least he stopped once he realized I was actually the Archbishop. That and Ingrid being there kept him in line. Heh. It's good to know Ingrid is doing as well as ever. Shame that she's stuck in the kingdom, that girl is quite the looker. She is pretty, though she also seemed stressed with everything going on, Byleth responded, frowning a bit since she still wasn't sure why the kingdom delegates had been so stressed out. Still, they both seemed to be doing well. Sylvain was also pretty nice once he stopped flirting with me, after realizing who I was, admittedly. I'd still be careful around him. He is a rake and a roustabout, as they say. Why, I wouldn't be surprised if he spent his time ogling you all day. Well, it wasn't all day, Byleth muttered, getting Dorothea to laugh. You don't need to be so kind, though I imagine you probably had your hands full with everyone there. I mean, Lorenz and Ferdy were both there, weren't they? Well, Lorenz can be a bit much, but he's decent. I mean, the portrait was his idea, and it was nice seeing myself on the canvas like that, Byleth responded, and Ferdinand is a good person. I mean, even if he and Ingrid did overreact, they were well-meaning when they went to make sure Bernadetta wasn't scalded when she spilled her tea. I can imagine Bernie wasn't too happy to get swept off her feet though. I doubt most people would be happy to get tossed over someone's shoulder. Heh, well, regardless, I hope everything goes well for you when you travel to the kingdom and the alliance. Especially in the kingdom, it's still pretty dangerous around there, from what I've heard. Ah, thank you, though I can defend myself well enough. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm the strongest person at the monastery. Heh, I didn't expect to hear you have that much pride in your skills. I might not be a mercenary anymore, but I still keep up my training. It might sound hard to believe, but I don't think anyone could beat me one-on-one. Well now, color me intrigued. No one at all. Well, in the Empire, at least, I'd probably have some trouble against Count Bergliez. Dorothea had to admit, she was used to people boasting about themselves, but there was always a generous amount of arrogance. Byleth, however, seemed to be speaking sincerely as she considered the question. Really? Not to be rude, but I find that hard to believe. I've seen the Count in combat, and I doubt many could even last long in a fight against him. Oh, well, I'm just basing this relatively. One of my friends is a man named Balthus, who says he's equal to General Holst of the Alliance, who in turn is the strongest person in the Alliance. So since I can beat Balthus, I can presumably win against Holst, which in turn means I can win against the Count. She had never fought against the Count last time around, but really, the only one-on-one fight she could imagine having trouble with is Rhea in her dragon form. But that was a dragon, so that didn't count. Though as her mind remembered fighting Rhea, it also cruelly reminded her of something else. "Well, now I have to see you in action," Dorothea said, uncaring of how her torso had been ripped open by claws. Maybe yes someday," Byleth replied, doing her best to keep steady as she moved her gaze down to the table. "Byleth, is everything alright?" "Why yeah, everything is okay." Byleth managed to get out. "Just, sometimes I get flashes of visions. It can be a bit much at times." "I see, I imagine being able to see the future definitely has some downsides." It at least means I can know what to stop." "Heh, I imagine so." "Quite the saint, aren't you?" "No, I don't really consider myself that good of a person," Byleth murmured. "But, at least I can make up for my mistakes." Well that's all anyone can do, you know? And besides, people might like to say saintly to mean something good, but who knows what the actual saints were like. You don't need to be perfect, just do your best, right?" She gave Byleth a smile, then a slightly more amused grin. "Besides, you just need the goddess's approval to really be a saint, and you definitely have that." "When I'm not getting her mad at me at least," Byleth said, trying to put a joking tone to her voice. Who could be mad at someone like you?" Dorothea teased, feeling happy that the cutie before her was willing to joke about her religion despite being the archbishop. "Why, I bet when they make a statue of you, it'll be quite the popular one." Byleth felt her face burn as she fidgeted. Maybe a statue is too much." But you'd be a lovely model. You had that portrait done, so it's not like it's your first time, right? And all you really need to do is get the one done, then people can copy it, like how you can get little statuettes of the saints from some shops out in the city." She grinned in remembrance. "I actually saw those statuettes long before I actually saw the statues they were based on. And honestly, the statuettes looked better." Wait, that's worse," Byleth argued, even as her face felt like it was on fire. The idea of them making a statue was bad enough, but to also make her into a statuette that people could own. "Really?" Well, you could always do what the opera house does and have posters of you get made. Could even have them in different poses and such to entice people into buying multiple," Dorothea teased, grinning as Byleth nearly commoosed in embarrassment. Well, she might as well go easy on her, and she was curious about something else. "Well, if you want to move the conversation on, how about indulging my curiosity? I've heard your father is quite the legendary knight, but that he suddenly went missing 20 years ago. Definitely sounds like there's a story there." Yeah, Geralt and Rhea had a falling out, so he took me and left," Byleth explained, not wanting to get into the details. Grabbing her water, Byleth drank from it to not say more. "Oh, so Lady Rhea is your mom?" Only to immediately start choking on her water. Which only cemented the idea. Rhea isn't my mom," Byleth argued, which only amused Dorothea. "Come on Byleth, you can tell me, I'll keep it a secret." I am serious. Rhea, she's more like a grandma than my mom. Papa left because Mama died." Dorothea blinked. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." It's okay, well, it happened when I was born, so I never really knew her. I want to though. It feels strange, mourning someone I never met." "I can imagine." Dorothea's smile turned a little sad as she decided to be honest too. "I can't say my own family life was too good either. My father was a noble, my mother was a maid, you can imagine how that went." Byleth winced, because not only could she, but she'd heard this story before. "He, wasn't very kind, was he?" "Not in the slightest. The instant he knew I didn't have a crest, we were out on the streets, and it wasn't long before my mother died and I was alone. Of course, then Manuela found me and I found a new family, so the story has a happy ending." Byleth knew Dorothea was leaving out a lot of details, but, they had just met, in this life at least, so she wasn't going to pry. "I'm glad. You deserve to be happy." Well, aren't you sweet? Though, I did have a question. She blinked. Oh, about what? Did you just say Ria is like your grandmother? Aunt. I meant to say she's like my aunt. She cleared her throat a little awkwardly. Don't mention the grandma part. I'll do my best, Dorothea teased. Also, have to say it's adorable you call your dad Papa. Byleth stiffened as her face got flushed again. I meant Geralt. No need to hide what you call him. But it's more professional if I call him Geralt, instead of Papa. You could try calling him Dad or Father. What? No, that's weird, Papa is Papa. Heh, I see. Yup, definitely adorable. Thankfully for Byleth, Dorothea decided not to tease her more as they finished their meal, heading out to continue seeing in Bear. Oh, hey Dorothea. Well, they were until they were stopped by Shay, which made Byleth stiffen as she moved slightly behind Dorothea. Oh, hi Shezzy, how's everything going? Going well, was just doing some shopping. I needed to get a new whetstone. Couldn't you just use one from the palace? I prefer having my own, Shay responded before glancing behind Dorothea. Oh hey, who's your friend? Byleth stiffened again, unsure of what to do as she really didn't want to ruin her outing with Dorothea. Oh, this is my friend, Lethe. She's new around here so I wanted to show her around. Though she's a bit shy so you'll have to forgive her if she doesn't say anything. Oh, got it. Well, it's nice to meet you, Lethe. Byleth blinked, genuinely surprised that Shay fell for that. She just nodded in response, thankful that Dorothea gave her a reason to avoid speaking. So where's she from? Oh, you know, up north. She wanted to be here cause she heard about the Southern Church maybe getting established again. Well that might take a bit, given Count Varley got run off. Shezzy, pretty sure you're not supposed to mention that. Right, shit, Shay glanced at Byleth before giving her a thumbs up. Don't worry, everything is going great. Byleth wished she shared Shay's enthusiasm, as it was, she just sort of returned the thumbs up, which was apparently a good move since it made Shay smile all the wider. Alright, I'll leave you two to your date. I should get back to the palace, Shay said before walking off, in the complete wrong direction. You're going the wrong way, Byleth called out, raising the pitch of her voice while speaking softly. Really? You sure? Shay asked. In response, Byleth silently turned her head towards where the palace was, which was indeed in the exact opposite direction. Well hey, thanks for the heads up. You don't need to worry though, I know this city like the back of my hand. I was just gonna take a shortcut. Dorothea raised an eyebrow. Sure, Shezzy. Just try to stick to the main road and avoid any other shortcuts, okay? Like I said, you don't need to worry. But sure, alright, if it'll make you feel better. See you around, Dorothea, Lethe. And with that, she promptly walked off, this time going around Dorothea and Byleth so she could actually head towards the palace. Is she going to be okay? Byleth asked. Who, Shezzy? Oh sure, she'll be fine. If anyone tried to jump her, she would leave them in pieces. That's not quite what I meant, but, okay. She still glanced back at Shay one more time and noticed the general going straight down a side street instead of taking the main road, like requested. Shezzy might not be good with directions, but she usually shows back up sooner or later. Heck, the main reason she joined the academy is because she got lost. She did. Yup, if I remember correctly she was looking for a village called Remire, but apparently got lost and bumped into Edie and the other house leaders. And, well, one thing led to another and now we're here. She was searching for Remire, and, got lost. That's what I heard. Why? Are you familiar with it? I was. Byleth trailed off, unable to answer as she tried to piece everything together. She missed her chance to become the Black Eagle's professor because of random chance. She couldn't stand by Edelgard's side because someone was bad with directions. I think I hate Shay. Dorothea blinked. Why? Reasons. I know that Shay might be rude to you, but she's not that bad of a person. I don't care. I hate her, Byleth stated, her anger only growing as she remembered how happy Shay looked. A happiness that should have been hers and now can't be. Byleth, she's my friend. And she ruined my life. She shouted, unable to stop herself as her eyes began to sting. Dorothea frowned, before putting an arm around Byleth's shoulders. The young woman stiffened, then started to lean into Dorothea's touch before seeming to catch herself. Still, she let herself be led along to a side alley where Dorothea believed their conversation would be more private. Byleth, can you tell me what happened? You didn't seem angry with her a second ago. That was before I realized she's the reason everything is different. Different in what way? Different from your visions. Yes. I could have fixed things so much more easily if she didn't just get stupidly lost at the worst possible time. Dorothea racked her brain, trying to think back to what about Shay specifically set Byleth off. Were you at Remire? Did you go there to try to save the 3 house leaders? What? No, I was already there. I came back. Remire is where I received my visions. Where I started my second life, essentially. And it's just, I know how things would have gone if Shay wasn't there, and I was so sure I could fix things before they went wrong because of it, but then it fell apart, and just because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or, right place, right time, I guess. But, what exactly do you need to fix? In some time in the next 5 years Edelgard will die, Byleth admitted, catching Dorothea off guard, she and countless others. And because I wasn't able to meet her at Remire, I lost my chance to gain her trust to make sure that didn't happen. Instead, I had to become the fucking Archbishop just so I could get a chance to fix things, and now I have to do so much more than I thought I'd have to. Now I have to deal with political double talk, followers with so much blind faith that I feel like I'm the crazy one, and the person I'm trying to save isn't trusting me at all because she thinks I'm aligned with one of her greatest enemies. Byleth shouted as she felt something break in her. Tears began to fall from her eyes in rivers. I just wanted things to be simple, I didn't want any of this. That was complicated. A lot more complicated than Dorothea expected she would have to deal with. She was already willing to believe Byleth could have some prophetic ability, but it sounded almost like she had genuinely lived through the future she saw. And, from the sound of it, it wasn't a pleasant future. For a brief moment, Dorothea felt a chill as she considered the possibility that Byleth had known of her work, but hadn't known her, because she died too. She brushed the thought off after a second, but it did help clarify just why the Archbishop seemed so shaken. I have to say, I really didn't expect any of that, she admitted. I'm sorry. It's okay, I understand if you want to leave. That's not it. She took a breath. Byleth, Hubie asked me to spy on you and I agreed to. Byleth blinked. Oh, okay. Dorothea paused, then stared back at the Archbishop, who looked genuinely confused instead of upset. Well, she still looked like she'd been crying, but there was definitely more bewilderment in her gaze now. Byleth, I was spending time with you to gather information for my friend. Right, I understood what you meant. She paused again, then looked sad. So you don't like spending time with me? No, I do. I like being around you, you're sweet and cute, I didn't realize how much you had weighing on you, and I feel terrible for treating this like some game where I'm teasing secrets out of you for Hubie to use. I'm sorry. Oh, I will say, it's a surprise hearing that you're spying on me for Hubert. You're not like the rest of his spies. Well, I would hope, rest of his spies. Yeah, he has a bunch of spies around the castle and the city. 2 of the shopkeepers we passed by on the way to the restaurant worked for him, Byleth admitted, getting Dorothea to blink. They're kinda easy to notice cause they all stare at me in the same intense way as the Agarthan infiltrators, but without any bloodlust. Like the maid who helps me get dressed because the Archbishop clothes I have to wear are too complicated on my own. There were a lot of strange things about that sentence. Hold on. So, in order, Hubert has spies everywhere and 2 of the shopkeepers were spies. At Byleth's nod, she continued. And you can spot them because they act the same as what was that you said? Agarthan. Right. It would take a while to explain, they're the same as the people who tried to assassinate me the other day. Oh. Wait, there are more of those people around. Ah, no, there aren't, I just noticed them before they attacked, I haven't seen any today. I mean, unless I'm misreading some of the spies that I think are Hubert's. But there's also church spies around too, so I think we're pretty good. Should I ask about the church's spies? Oh, well, they're mostly just people like Shamir that are keeping an eye out on me. None of them have made it into the palace without Hubert knowing though, I think, since I only started seeing them when we were walking around here. So, they're probably just some of the knights we brought in disguise. Byleth shrugged, brushing slightly at her irritated eyes. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can check in later if you want. That might be a good idea. And one more thing. Hubert has people spy on you while you change. If I'm right, yes. I don't really expect anything different from him, it's just the way he is. Dorothea kind of felt like Byleth was making excuses for her friend being a pervert. Intellectually, she knew that wasn't the case and Hubert really was just overprotective of Edelgard, but it really didn't sound good for him. Right, well, is there anything else I should ask about? How are you feeling? Better, I guess, and I want to kiss you. She blinked. Pardon? I want to keep hanging out with you. Byleth paused. Can you tell Hubert that Ria's my aunt? I don't like it when people call her my mom and I don't really want him to know about the grandma thing. Sure thing. Oh, wait, one more thing. Was the greeter at the restaurant a spy? I noticed the way he glanced at you. Oh, no, he was just an asshole who thought I wasn't worthy of being there because I looked too common. Byleth explained. If you hadn't been there, I probably would have gotten kicked out. Huh. Well, she wasn't going there anymore. There's a lot of people like him in Inver, and I'm really hoping to be able to fix that once I start putting in reforms in the church. Dorothea refrained from saying that while that was sweet, it was very naive. It's not naive to have hope. Was it obvious that I was thinking? It's what a lot of people have been thinking. It's going to be difficult, but if nothing else, I can at least lay the groundwork for Edelgard. Still, try to change too much and you might get called a heretic, you know. Trust me, I would have already gotten called one if Ria hadn't gotten me to stop. I was still seriously considering saying that the entire church's doctrine was a lie when I became the archbishop. Wow. Well, that would have been a very bold choice. I think I would technically be an apostate in that situation, not just a heretic, according to the books I read, Byleth noted, earning a little giggle from Dorothea before she tried to be serious again. Either way, you should be careful. Some people can get pretty intense about the church. I know, and I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to fix things. Byleth said, a small smile on her face. And she'd do whatever it took to make sure everyone would live. Staring at Byleth as she pushed herself off the wall, Dorothea felt herself reaching out to grab her sleeve as she began to walk away. Is something wrong? Oh, no just. Dorothea wasn't sure what happened, but she felt as if Byleth would disappear if she let her walk away. I'll talk to Edie, so make sure to get some rest, okay? Oh, are we, going back then? She asked with a faintly disappointed tone, like she wanted to keep spending time with Dorothea. And Dorothea found that she really didn't want to end things this early too. Well, I suppose we can spend a little more time together, if you want to. Her bright smile showed that she most definitely did. Chapter 27, Exploring Emotions. Edelgard was thankful that they had actually gotten notice that Ria would be coming, since it meant she could prepare for her arrival. Though it also meant even more things on her plate that she had to deal with. Still, she had time before Ria arrived, hence why she was discussing important matters with her trusted allies. Namely, the information that Dorothea had discovered. So, care to regale us with anything you might have learned on your outing? Hubert asked as Dorothea seemed to shift, uncharacteristically anxious. Hey, Edie, I know you plan on taking on the church, but are we sure that's the only way? Is there any reason why you're saying this? She asked in return, her eyes narrowed. Well, it's just, Byleth really seems to want to make things better. And she seems to have the same ideas as you. That is presuming she isn't lying to us, Hubert noted. Hubie, I've seen fake tears. Byleth was genuinely crying yesterday. So she actually did cry after her meeting with Lady Edelgard? Monica asked. She didn't take some news well yesterday. She said that she was supposed to have met you in Remire, and the fact that she didn't threw everything off, Dorothea explained, looking at Edelgard. Apparently the reason she even became the Archbishop was so she could meet you. That was alarming. So she has a fixation on Her Majesty, Hubert remarked, earning a sigh from Dorothea. I swear, all of you are so pessimistic, it makes my own cynicism feel naively optimistic. Well, he's not wrong. She did admit to being in love with the Lady Edelgard she supposedly saw in her visions, Monica said, getting Dorothea to blink. She also claimed to have been the one to kill her, Hubert added in. Well, those weren't details I knew, Dorothea admitted. She did mention Edelgard could die in the next 5 years, but not that she would kill her. So she can be duplicitous then. Hubie. She wasn't honest with you, Dorothea. It proves she is willing to lie. Hubie, that's rich coming from you. I should also point out that most people wouldn't say, I saw myself killing your best friend in the future, because that's insane. Monica frowned. It still sounds like she misrepresented the facts. It sounds like you two are searching for reasons not to trust her, so it really doesn't matter what I say about it and we should just move on to something we can actually discuss already. Like the fact that she knows you have spies watching her, Hubie, and how creepy it is that you have them watch her when she changes. That got Edelgard to pause, before looking over at Hubert, who looked unrepentant. What? It's the most opportune time to spy on someone, since they let their guard down. Though I wasn't aware she had realized they were spying on her. Perhaps they need more training. Well, she can also spot other spies, such as the assassins who tried to take her out, Dorothea explained. It's why she was able to take them out when they tried to ambush her. Hubert frowned. She can actually spot them. Yup, apparently they have a lot of bloodlust which she notices. As far as she's aware though, there haven't been any others around, she continued, though even if there were, she doesn't seem worried since she seems very sure she could even beat Count Burgles. Well, that's quite the boast, Hubert commented, unfazed, while Monica's eyes widened. Does she really think she can? She seemed confident to me, Dorothea answered, and you've all met her. Confident isn't a word I'd use to describe her. Well, most of the time. Regardless, it is known that she is quite strong, as Shay has noted, Monica pointed out, so even if she isn't on the Count's level, we still need to be careful around her. Anything else of note, Dorothea? Hubert asked as Edelgard mused over what to do. Well, apparently Rhea is her aunt, not her mom. So even if she is lying about the specific relationship, she is still one of Rhea's kind. Hubert noted, getting Dorothea to sigh. So is there a reason why I'm spying for you if you're just not going to trust what I say? I will agree that these two are being more skeptical than we need to be, Edelgard remarked. Regardless, I would like to hear your opinion on her, Dorothea. Well, it's odd, Dorothea said, a thin frown on her face. When I was talking to her it felt as if she was an old friend. How so? I don't know, when I talked with her, it felt as if I was talking with someone I haven't seen in years, not someone I just barely met. It just felt right to be near her. She raised her hand to stop Hubert and Monica from talking. And before either of you say anything, I'm not talking about something like love at first sight, or whatever other comment you were going to make. As though such a thing exists, Hubert drawled. It does so. Surprisingly, or perhaps unsurprisingly, Monica vehemently protested his declaration. Just look at my relationship with Her Majesty. Love at first sight is completely real, and I can remember every glorious moment of our first wonderful meeting. You can remember everything with perfect clarity, if you'll recall, he replied, his tone mocking. You should keep it in mind, given it's the only reason we keep you around. How dare you? Her Majesty values me as a close confidant. And I chose to be with her, instead of having an obligation to it. That prompted an actual scowl from Hubert. My obligations to Her Majesty mean more than your inane infatuation. Money, Hubie, you're both pretty and I'm sure Edie loves and appreciates you, Dorothea cut in, drawing attention back to her in the way only a professional performer could, don't you, Edie? Edelgard paused, not expecting to be put on the spot. Ah, well, yes, of course I value both of you. Oh, Your Majesty. Monica squealed happily, about to hug Edelgard before Hubert put a hand on her head and simply shoved her back. Gah. Hubert. Leave the physical affection for a less important meeting, Oaks. Dorothea, do you have anything else to report on? Ah, well, Dorothea took a moment to think, before looking at Edelgard again. Edie, you're my friend, and I'm going to stand with you, but I think Byleth could be a good ally. She really seems like she wants to work with you, so, maybe we can take this chance. I'll keep that in mind, the Emperor replied without committing to anything. Good, thank you. Oh, also, and this is very important, Geralt probably wasn't actually replaced by one of those slithery people. Apparently the reason she calls him Geralt is because she wants to be professional. Otherwise she calls him Papa. That is remarkably childish, Hubert noted, prompting a frown from Dorothea. Hubie. I am merely making a note. Oh, and I believe I should excuse myself. Edelgard paused, then looked up at her attendant. Hubert, what did you do? Nothing. Yet. I am merely going to relay some information to my staff and prevent any undue issues with the Archbishop's father. Hubert, did you decide to poison him? Your Majesty, you cannot be indicted if you do not know of my actions, so I will not answer that. Now, if you will excuse me. And with that, he left in slightly more of a hurry than the three ladies were used to seeing. Edie, I know Hubie's our friend, but you really need to rein him in. I've noticed. Staring up at the ceiling, Byleth let out a sigh as she leaned back against the crimson cushions of the couch in one of the palace's tea rooms. There were a few, because everything in Inver was huge. You good there, Chatterbox? Her current companion asked, laying back against the armrest of the couch while she let her feet rest in Byleth's lap. I think I'm in love. Wow. That girl from yesterday? Happy asked, getting Byleth to nod. Wow. The sex must have been incredible. Happy. We didn't do anything. Really? Not even a kiss. Byleth shook her head. Wow, you got it bad. MMMF, I haven't even held hands with anyone, I'm not going that far. Even if she kind of wanted to, now that she was thinking about it. Apparently desire counted as an emotion she could feel now. How far have you ever gone with anyone, I guess? Chatterbox, you remember what my whole problem is, right? I shouldn't be doing stuff that's going to involve a lot of passionate exhaling. Oh. Oh, right, that would be, Would a gag help? Wow, you went right for that, alright. Chatterbox has a kinky side. And no. I was just, would it help? No idea, haven't tried it. You wanna help me experiment? Byleth stiffened, her face going completely red as she sat up straighter and stared at Happy. That, what? It's no wonder Yuri Bird teases you all the time, it's super easy. Happy smirked. Maybe getting some experience would help. How about it, Chatterbox, want to kiss me? What? Byleth managed to squeak out. No need to get that flustered, just think of it as a friend helping another friend out. But, Tunc Constance. What do you think me and Constance do? Happy asked as she not only sat up, but moved very close to Byleth with a small smirk. Do you think she and I do stuff like this? Well, you two are really close, Byleth tried to explain as Happy moved closer and started to straddle her lap. So like this close? Why yes, she squeaked, her face completely red as Happy stared straight into her eyes, her usual apathy replaced by a faint amusement and what Byleth thought might be interest. Which was somehow both terrifying and enticing. Despite herself, Byleth felt her eyes closing as she pursed her lips. And then they opened again when Happy tapped her on the nose. You're adorable, Chatterbox. Byleth let herself fall back slightly with a huff, her face crimson as she pouted. That was mean, Happy. Sorry. Let me make it up to you. Huh. Byleth blinked at Happy's lips met hers for a brief peck before the redhead pulled back. And then her face went completely crimson as a faint, vaguely whimpery noise slipped out of her mouth. Try not to pass out, Chatterbox, Happy teased, as she got off her lap. Hey, that was your first kiss, right? Byleth managed to nod in response. Sweet, I win. Wait, win? Did you guys bet on me or something? Byleth asked as her embarrassment receded. Not really. We didn't put down money or anything. As is, we've just kind of been talking. And since I kissed you that means I win, Happy noted, wonder if I should tell the others. Please don't, what do you mean you've been talking? You're not the only one who likes to chat, Chatterbox. Is it really a surprise that the topic of our cute new boss has come up a few times? That, CC cute? Why you think I'm cute? That should be obvious. I'm sure Yuri Bird's made it obvious he thinks so too, and I know I've heard Constance praise you a few times. She's just being nice though. Happy raised an eyebrow, which just made Byleth blush again. What about Balthus? So B's your type then? Good to know. That's not, MFF. Happy? Yes, that's my name. Or are you saying I'm your type? I am not sure. I like, many types. Maybe. So Yuri Bird does have a chance. I'll make sure to let him know. Stop teasing me. Stop being easy to tease. Huffing, Byleth stood up as the door opened and the remaining Ashen Wolves entered. Hey there, Happy, holy lady, how's everything going? Yuri asked, glancing at Byleth, whose face went pink again. I kissed Chatterbox, Happy stated, getting them to blink. Oh, well in that case. Yuri walked over and cupped Byleth's chin, catching her off guard, before he pushed his lips against hers. Feeling her eyes go wide, Byleth could only stare as Yuri held the kiss for much longer than Happy did, before breaking it. Hope you enjoyed. Byleth stared up at Yuri, her mouth slightly open in a mix of genuine shock and stunned embarrassment, before she grabbed him by the lapel and kissed him straight on the lips in return. Whoa. Damn, boss, wait, which boss should I be impressed by? Balthus wondered while Constance huffed, opening up her fan to cover her own slightly flushed face. I feel as though I should blame you for this, Happy, she muttered, shooting a glare at her red-headed friend. Yeah, you probably should, Happy admitted while pushing herself up from the couch, idly watching as Byleth let out a whole lot of pent-up desires on a very willing Yuri. I don't think you can completely blame me though. I think Chatterbox was going to burst sooner rather than later with how flustered she gets. Humph. You still shouldn't have been so forward. She is meant to be our liege. You still call her attendant. It is a term of endearment. I know it is, Coco. Are those two gonna come up for air? Balthus wondered, though his question wouldn't be answered anytime soon as the door was abruptly shoved open again. Byleth, are you okay? I came as soon as Lady Rhea, former Archbishop of the Church of Ceros and slightly overprotective honorary aunt to the current Archbishop, went completely silent as she took in the sight in front of her. For her part, Byleth was a little distracted initially, though once she did notice Rhea's presence, she abruptly broke her kiss with Yuri, stared straight at the former Archbishop in her midst, and did the only logical thing her overwhelmed brain could think of at the moment. That being to pass out right on the spot. So, Byleth, would you care to tell me what is going on? Rhea asked once Byleth had finally gotten up and composed herself. Well, I believe everything is going well. I have talked with the Emperor and she seems to have come to some form of understanding me, Byleth started. That is good to hear, but I mean about you and Yuri, Rhea interrupted, making Byleth stiffen. I was unaware that you were intending on pursuing a relationship with him. Does it matter if I do? No, I simply wish to make sure everything is going well. Especially given you told me you held affections for a girl from the Black Eagles, which Yuri is most assuredly not. I mean. Byleth frowned as she moved her gaze downwards. I pretty much ruined my chances there. Child, surely it could not have been that bad. Rhea asked, only to frown as the former mercenary winced. Byleth really wasn't sure how worse it could get than telling one that she killed her, and having a breakdown in front of the other. Would you like to talk about it? There's nothing to talk about, especially since we should be focused on preventing what's to come, Byleth said, quickly changing the subject. Speaking of, why are you here? Did you leave Garreg Mach abandoned by coming here? I did not abandon it. The knights I had are still stationed there and Seath can handle matters for a few days. Yeah, but you never leave the monastery. Byleth pointed out, a little insistently, you even made it a point that the archbishop never leaves the church. Well, yes. However, you were in danger. Despite what anyone may say, your safety matters far more to me than my position, especially since I am no longer the archbishop. Byleth blinked as her eyes started to sting, before raising her hands to ward off Rhea. I know it looks like I'm crying, but please don't hug me or else I will actually start crying. I shall listen to that request this time. For now though, we must consider what we must do when speaking with the Emperor. I think I can handle it, Byleth said, before pausing as she remembered how Shay would likely be around. She tried to take a small breath as her fist clenched her robes. For the most part. What's wrong? The mercenary, Shay. I found out that the reason everything got messed up, is just because she got lost in the woods trying to find me. Not to mention how she blames me for killing all her friends, when all I did was defend myself. Byleth took in a deep breath as she felt her anger spike for a moment. I understand that I killed people she cared about, but I didn't kill them all myself, yet she blames me for it all. And now I feel like I'm going to punch her next time I see her. Very well, I shall handle her then. Handle her or handle her? Rhea sighed. I'm not going to have her killed, child. Okay, good, because even if I don't like her, that would look really bad for us. Don't worry, everything will be okay. Much like how I'm sure everything will be well for you, Rhea said, smiling at Byleth. Though, we may need to speak about your relationship, regardless of who you choose to pursue. Do we need to? It is important. I don't want you to have any regrets like I did, Rhea stated, a small frown on her face. Even if it is only temporary, you should be honest with your feelings, so that you can keep their memory alive in you even in the far future. Ah. Byleth frowned, looking down once again. That had always been something in the back of her mind, but she was immortal now. She would outlive everyone who wasn't part of her family. If you are lucky, you may find someone who wishes to share their lifespan with you, but even if they don't, you should be able to enjoy your time with them, Rhea continued, before placing a hand on Byleth's shoulder. I am aware this will be difficult, but I assure you, I will always be there to comfort you in your mourning. I don't really want to think about that, she admitted. I want to make sure everyone lives happily, not think about them dying. Even if it would, hopefully, be decades in the future. Of course, you are still young. Mortality is, Rhea sighed. I'm sorry. This isn't comforting you at all, is it? Not really, no. She let out a small laugh. I'm sorry, I'm not really good at handling grief it seems. Well, you're doing better than last time, at least, Byleth said in response. And how exactly did I act? After a moment of staring, Byleth silently gestured at herself. Right. Not for the first time, Rhea thought to herself that she really shouldn't be in charge. Sighing in annoyance, Shay trudged down the hallways of the palace, her body practically buzzing with irritation as her thoughts from the past few days came surging up again. First the Ashen Demon shows up as the Archbishop, and then she has the nerve to forget about her. Not only that, the bitch even thought Shay was a guy for some reason. Clearly she was taunting you, Arvel helpfully noted. I know that. Shay snapped back, not really in the mood. No what? Asked someone else, which made Shay pause in her tracks to see who spoke. Oh, hey Linhard. Where have you been? In the palace vault. What? Well, I wasn't going to come out while the new archbishop is around because Edelgard always tries to get me to do things. Then I remembered how the Imperial Vault is chock full of magical items. I figured everyone would be busy with everything going on, so it would be easy to sneak in and see what's in there. Partner, you should probably leave before you get in trouble because of him, Arvel advised, though Shay just looked curious, much to their own exasperation. Really? What did you find in there? Wait, is that something I'm allowed to ask? I don't see why not. It was mainly just gold and some weapons. There were a couple of doors I couldn't get past, but that's cause they required an actual key rather than take down a magic barrier. So I wasted my time for nothing really. Really? I mean, the weapons would have been neat to see, Shay commented, wondering if she should try sneaking in. Though before she could finish that thought, another voice caught her attention. The gardens are around here, you'll really like them. Stiffening, Shay turned to see the Ashen Demon and Rhea approaching, the latter having a soft smile on her face. Whatever expression the former had, however, melted away as she saw Shay glaring at her. What Shay didn't expect was for her to return the glare with far more venom. Caught off guard, Shay rallied herself as she began to bristle. What's your prob dash? Shay, was it? Rhea asked, stepping in between them. Yeah? Did you need something, Lady Rhea? Nothing, I just wished to thank you for committing to your duties. Such as ensuring the protection of my successor. I'm sure I need not tell you that any threat against her, even if they are only verbal, is permissible only by the immediate death of the perpetrator. Failure to do so would reflect rather poorly on yourself and the Emperor, would it not? I see. Shay restrained herself, not wanting to push her luck. Though she was still feeling petty. I gotta say, didn't expect the Archbishop would need her mom to thank me. She's not my mom. Byleth shouted, genuine anger in her eyes before she closed them, took a breath, and stared straight at Shay. General Shay, I am going to the training field to work off some agitation. If you have anything more than angry words and hot air for me, then you may feel free to join me. Otherwise, I would ask that you inform my friend Balthus of where I will be so he can provide an actual challenge. Bye. And with that, she turned and walked away, earning a faintly amused noise from Linhard. Wow. I can see why she's your hated rival. She looks like she loathes you. Yes, I noticed that as well, Rhea murmured, before side-eyeing Shay. Would you care to comment, Shay? Shay just stared silently at where Byleth had marched off, before bristling as her words hit her. I'll show you a challenge. Without another word, Shay took off after her, ignoring the unamused stare Rhea was giving her. Letting out a small sigh, the former Archbishop followed as well, wanting to at least see the show. Lindhart, wanting none of the drama, decided to return to his room. Chapter 28, A Destined Battle. You're going to end up killing someone, Suthis said as Byleth marched to the training grounds. No, I'm not. I just want to find someone to fight, Byleth argued, not stopping for a moment. She still did take some breaths to calm down before she completely snapped. Upon arriving, she immediately walked up to the first two people she recognized. Come now, Edelgard, surely you have time for a spar. Oh, Lady Byleth, did you require something? Ferdinand asked as he saw the Archbishop approaching. Hey, I need to kick someone's ass, any volunteers? I beg your pardon, he replied, genuinely unsure if he had heard her right. I'm annoyed and feeling aggressive, I want to fight to work out the stress, preferably on someone I can just smack around for a while. Before you ask, actually fighting someone works better for me than just hitting a dummy because I tend to break those and it just makes me more agitated because I feel bad for the dummy. He wasn't planning to ask that. Really, Ferdinand was still feeling caught off guard by Byleth openly cursing and seeking violence as an outlet for agitation. That really didn't fit his mental image of the shy, demure Archbishop he had met at all. Ah, Lady Byleth, are you sure you would not rather have some tea to help calm you down? No. Tea's what I have when I want to relax or spend time with people, not when I'm mad. Staring silently, Edelgard wondered just what exactly agitated the Archbishop to provoke this reaction. Hey. Up until she got an answer. Groaning, she looked over to see Shay running over. Shay, what are you doing? Sparring against her, what do you think? Shay answered, clearly not happy either. Okay, good, Byleth stated, immediately taking off her robes, making Ferdinand blush. Though even he couldn't help but stare when he saw the tight shorts and midriff-bearing shirt that the Archbishop kept under her robes. Both Duke and Emperor also couldn't help but stare as they saw just how fit Byleth was under her clothes, her muscles very visibly defined, especially with how tense she currently was. "Byleth, you could have at least gone to a changing room," Rhea chastised as she arrived, making no attempt to stop Byleth as she found a spot to stand nearby. "I'll do that when I get dressed later," Byleth responded as she began to do some light stretches, getting ready as she moved to the sparring ring, while not grabbing any armor or weapons. "Hey, what are you doing? The gear is over here," Shay shouted as she grabbed two wooden swords. "Give me a reason to use them," Byleth shot back, waiting for Shay in the ring. Biting back a response, Shay marched up ready to fight. "Humph, quite what an arrogant demon. Best to show her place, partner," Arvel goaded with a smirk on their face. "All right then, come on, I'll let you take the first shot," Shay said, aiming one of her swords at Byleth. "Unless you want your mom in the ring with you." Byleth took in a deep breath. "I want you to know that I really don't like violence, but you are asking for this." Asking for what was about as far as Shay got before suddenly feeling her outstretched hand get knocked to the side, before she was decked in the face, the blow knocking the Imperial General flat on her back. "And I already told you Rhea isn't my mom," Byleth reminded the dazed general, who was trying to figure out why she was seeing stars in the daytime. Edelgard, meanwhile, could only stare in shock as she took in the sight of Shay getting taken out so easily. Sure, she might have let her guard down in her arrogance, but for her to go down in one punch? Curious about her strength, she heard Rhea ask, the former archbishop sounding highly amused. "If I am being honest, yes. Well, I'm sure you've heard of her prophetic ability." Suddenly gaining the knowledge and therefore experience of the next 5 years where she had been a mercenary, why it would almost be considered cheating. That is cheating," Shay called out, growling as she pushed herself up. Byleth, meanwhile, raised an eyebrow. "You were a mercenary, weren't you? Cheating shouldn't be in your vocabulary." Still," Shay argued, grabbing her swords. "Come on, I can still go." "Fine, I'll let you take the next hit." Shay growled again, her eyes narrowed in a glare, before she abruptly vanished, reappearing behind Byleth and completely missing her swing as Byleth ducked on instinct. And then she was down again after Byleth buried her fist into Shay's gut and sent her to the floor again. "Sorry, I ducked on instinct." She didn't sound sorry in the slightest. Growling, Shay rushed forward, before swinging at Byleth, who actually took the hit this time, making Shay grin as the sword struck her head. Up until Byleth kicked her leg out from under her, sending her crashing onto the floor. "You get up surprisingly quickly. Are you healing yourself?" Byleth couldn't help but ask while Shay flipped up. "Wouldn't you like to know?" "Well, yes. That's why I asked." Byleth responded as she blocked some hits from Shay with her forearms, before grabbing her wrist and tossing her onto the floor. "Either way, you should keep your guard up. Even if you heal yourself, you shouldn't take so many hits." "I'm not taking lessons from you," Shay shouted, shoving herself up and stabbing at Byleth, who just tilted her head out of the way before slamming an uppercut into the general's jaw. "Believe me, General, you want me to treat this like a lesson," she stated as Shay flew up and crashed back down with a solid thud. "If I start treating this like a fight, you won't be conscious." That only seemed to incense Shay all the more as she got back to her feet, a serious glare to her gaze. Her strikes sharpened, moving faster and harder, all while she actually bothered to block Byleth's returning punches. Not that it helped her. Aside from the sounds of the wooden sword being blocked echoing out, a thick silence fell upon the training grounds as everyone there witnessed the general and archbishop sparring. Every soldier there knew of Shay's strength, so to see her losing so handily to Byleth was certainly eye-opening when it came to gauging the new archbishop's strength. After some time, someone finally spoke up. "That's enough," Edelgard stated, walking towards the ring, getting the former mercenaries to stop as they looked over. By this point, Byleth was admittedly starting to breathe heavier while Shay was covered with bruises and swaying on her feet. Byleth felt a frown on her face when she saw Edelgard holding a wooden shield and axe. Shay, get some rest. Hey dash. That's an order, Edelgard commanded before stepping towards Byleth. I want to try my hand at sparring with the new archbishop. And that immediately made Byleth shrink back. Are you sure? I won't take no for an answer. After how you treated my general, I have to regain some honor. Edelgard stated, glaring at Byleth. Even if she had her suspicions, Shay was still one of her subordinates. Letting the church humiliate her wasn't acceptable. Alright. Byleth readied herself, getting back into position as Shay collapsed onto the ground near the ring to watch. Immediately, Edelgard rushed in, bringing her shield up to slam into Byleth, who in turn dodged away. Fighting her instincts, Byleth stayed on the back foot as she ducked and weaved away from the Emperor, only using her hands to deflect blows from the axe. Why aren't you attacking? Edelgard demanded to know. I don't want to. Are you attempting to mock me? Edelgard questioned, slamming her axe down hard enough to crack the ground as Byleth jumped backwards. And no. Then take this seriously. Edelgard ordered, her attacks increasing as Byleth flinched, closing her eyes, and getting hit by the axe in the side. With a gasp of pain, Byleth suddenly found herself in the throne room, Edelgard wielding a relic weapon, dressed in armor befitting an emperor as she raised her axe. Fear flooding her senses, Byleth felt herself lashing back in response, her hand coming in contact with something. As the warm sensation of blood touched her fist, Byleth found herself back in the training ring, Edelgard stumbling backwards as blood leaked from her nose. I'm sorry. Byleth immediately moved up to the Emperor, raising hand. I can heal it, just stay still. In response, Edelgard slammed her shield into Byleth's face, making the Archbishop stumble back as she now had a bloody nose thanks to letting her guard down. I want you to take this seriously, Edelgard demanded, uncaring of her broken nose as she glared at Byleth. Byleth, meanwhile, couldn't help but tremble as she felt blood going down her face as she stared at the bleeding Edelgard. Professor. I suppose you think you can defeat me. Is that right? Visions flashed in front of Byleth as she stumbled back. But I will never give up. Even if my arms and legs failed me, I would still find a way to move forward. She could hear someone calling out to her. I will smash that false goddess and her minion into the ground. I will fight to free this world from her vile grasp. She heard something fall on the ground. I wanted to walk with you. The last thing people saw of Byleth were the tears falling from her eyes before she vanished. Byleth! Rhea shouted as the former mercenary disappeared, immediately rushing towards where she had been. Where did she go? How are we supposed to know? Shay responded, looking around as well. Quickly, everyone, spread out. Ferdinand ordered, commanding the various soldiers standing nearby to search for the Archbishop. Edelgard took a slow breath, then wiped the blood from her nose and looked out to her forces. Go find the Archbishop. I'll be with you shortly. But Edelgard. Not you, Shay. I don't think she wants to see you. And I doubt she'll want to see me. Those thoughts aside, Edelgard left the ring, her mind a-whirl as she moved back towards the palace at a slower pace than her rushing soldiers, leaving her alone as she stepped into the nearest hall. Which she appreciated, since it allowed her a moment with her thoughts. What was that look for, she wondered, a small frown on her face as she remembered the expression on Byleth's face as she raised her challenge. Why did she seem so horrified? Shouldn't it be obvious, Emperor? Edelgard paused, then looked at Rhea, who met her gaze with obvious anger. I suppose you blame me for this incident then. I have no idea what that child sees in an arrogant thug like you. Of all things to be called, Edelgard wasn't expecting thug. Her eyes narrowed, her position demanding a response to the insult. You are still speaking to an emperor, Rhea. You should already know how little that title means to me. I am well aware. You gladly allowed. I allowed far too much, yes. I allowed the families of those elites to keep their lives. I allowed your precious empire to falter and fracture. I allowed Wilhelm to slip away from me instead of admitting I loved him. It is for his memory that I regarded those of his line with favor, even if my own weakness allowed Adrestia to weaken in turn, and it is for Byleth's kindness that I have not declared you, Emperor, a treacherous apostate to be hated by all who bear witness to your murderous desires. The only reason you live at this moment is due to her kindness, and it is for her sake that I am going to stay my hand and tongue. I know how to prevent the war she foretold with far greater ease than she allows, and you and I both know how it could be done because we are cruel and undeserving of the kindness she shows. There was something inhuman in Rhea's gaze. Reptilian and cold, though, no, the rage there was very human. Almost disturbingly so. Edelgard found herself searching for words, trying to think of something to say in the face of that deluge of information, ending with a blatant threat to her life. You would not prevent a war. You fail to understand that I do not care. There are those I care for and I would see them safe, and that child is easily the one I love most of all and for whom I would annihilate your entire empire. I loved Wilhelm. I love Byleth. I do not love you. I stay my hand for her sake, none other. I will not threaten you, Emperor. You know what I will do. All I ask is that you understand that child, for some reason, thinks you are worthy of love. So do with that information what you will. I am going to go find my niece. And with that, Rhea turned and left without another word. Edelgard could do little more than glare at Rhea while she left, her body tense as she realized how close to death she was. If the Immaculate One attacked her then and there, she had no way of stopping her. Shaking her head, Edelgard continued to walk, before pausing. Turning her head, she saw a sconce missing a candle. Glancing down, she saw the candle on the floor. With a sigh, she walked over and grabbed the sconce, pulling it outward and then turning it to the right. A section of the wall slid away as Edelgard opened the secret passage and, hidden in the darkness, she could see the huddled figure of the Archbishop inside. Edelgard opened her mouth, about to speak, before she paused when she saw how panicked Byleth seemed. The curled-up woman didn't even notice Edelgard was there. Sighing once again as the entrance closed, ignoring the uncomfortable tension that spread up her back, the feeling of being a dark, cramped space, Edelgard sat down beside Byleth and thought back to what she did with Bernadetta when she acted similarly. A calm, soothing voice was in order, though she wasn't entirely sure what to discuss with her. Do you like gardening? It was an inane question. Why yeah, Byleth answered, her voice hoarse. So the question worked. I see. I suppose that is a point in common between you and Bernadetta. I imagine that is part of why you were able to become friends. Though her supposed visions of the future likely gave her an edge in that field. Part of. Yes, part of. I can imagine there were other factors, such as your seemingly similar personalities. Byleth let out a slow, audibly aggravated sigh. And now it's seemingly. Is there something wrong with the way I speak? You're too honest. Edelgard blinked. That wasn't something she expected to ever be accused of. I would think honesty would be considered a virtue by the faithful. Byleth tilted her head slightly so she could stare at Edelgard with reddened eyes through a curtain of loose hair. She wasn't sure if she was glaring or not. You can't stop, can you? You don't trust me at all. Everything about me comes with a caveat, that I'm lying and taking advantage of everyone around me instead of bumbling through life with barely an idea of what I'm doing. Edelgard couldn't help but scoff. You can't expect me to believe. I don't. I think you think I'm lying again. I don't know why I'm even trying. You're not the Edelgard I knew and I missed my chance already. Maybe I should have just thrown myself on my sword and saved us both the time. Edelgard watched as the Archbishop turned her head back into her arms. For some reason, her summation stung. You think you know me? No. I think I knew someone like you. Someone you could have been. The kind of person who fought a war for 5 years, stubbornly refusing to back down. Someone who would rather die than give up. Goddess, I'm stupid. I am not. Tell me about the war you saw. The look Byleth gave her was incredulous at best. Seriously? I wasn't even. I was dead for most of it, so there's that to start. Edelgard took a breath. Lady Eisner, in the interest of avoiding further difficulties between this, I need you to understand your claims sound outlandish and every time you add in something new that sounds just as absurd, I have a harder time believing the previous information. You know I planned to be the Flame Emperor, you knew of my plans leading up to the start of the war at the end of what would have been this year, and you claim to have been my professor, who I trusted enough to bring to my coronation. You needed a representative of the church, if that's easier to believe, Byleth muttered, some bitterness leaking into her voice. Edelgard bit back her initial response. She wasn't going to argue at this point, not when it was becoming obvious that Eisner was genuinely beginning to lose faith in her, an idea that she found surprisingly unpleasant to consider. The logical part of her mind pointed out that if she genuinely did get Eisner to turn against her, there was nothing stopping Rhea from killing her. The paranoid part warned that it could just all be a trick to get her trust, to bring her under the thumb of the church with Byleth as the carrot and Rhea as the stick. And the emotional part just found it genuinely unpleasant to consider the idea that a woman who had expressed an obvious desire for her approval and friendship would give up on her entirely. That she really was a monster unworthy of anyone's care. It was a stupid thought. She had people who cared for her. Hubert, Monica, Dorothea, they all cared for her despite how little she deserved it. So why was it painful to think of this woman who should be her enemy actually hating her? It was ridiculous, she was the one stepping up to defend Shay, why would she possibly be drawn to the symbol of everything she? I don't hate you, Byleth. Okay. It was a faint response, but Edelgard felt herself wince at the tone. At the disbelief. I don't. I have spent most of my life under the thumb of those monsters. I can't afford to trust someone I cannot absolutely trust, regardless of what they might say. The information you knew was something no one should have held, no one that wasn't part of those who slither in the dark. The only difference between us there being is that I choose to remain cautious, while you seem to want to immediately end them all. I do. I want to kill all of them. They're in Hrym, in an underground city called Shamhala. Hubert figured out where they were after they raised Mercers to the ground with their javelins of light. I want to go there and kill every single one of them so they'll never threaten anyone I care about again. They killed my father, they hurt you, they caused the war, I want them dead, she snapped, before slumping back against the wall again. I should have told you that sooner. Maybe you would have trusted me then. No, not at all, Edelgard admitted, I would have thought they were some attempt to put me under the church's thumb. Or just, she was going to say, the deranged ramblings of a madwoman, but it was fairly likely Byleth would have taken that the wrong way. A lie. When someone has information that I know they shouldn't, it puts me on edge. As does someone threatening one of my own. Even if she did still keep in mind the possibility that Shay was an infiltrator. Then tell Shay to stop threatening me. The only reason she hasn't been executed yet is because Rhea wasn't around to push the matter. She is still my general, I'm not going to let her. I'm not saying it as a threat. Byleth snapped, I'm not trying to threaten you. I'm letting you know that your friend is pushing her luck and I'm not, I can't just take being insulted anymore. My emotions are all over the place and if I start crying because something sets off these stupid things I can't even control, then Rhea's probably going to tear someone's head off. Ugh, and now I feel like I'm blaming her for something she hasn't even done and I feel guilty and it's just, how does anyone deal with this? I suppose we have the advantage of feeling emotions from the start of our lives. Edelgard tried for a chuckle, though it came out more rueful than she intended. Perhaps it would be easier if I didn't. It wouldn't. It just means you don't understand why everyone reacts to things when you can't. I'm the Ashen Demon because I didn't feel anything on the battlefield. It was just a job. I even let people burn to death because I wasn't emotional enough to try saving everyone. I just went for the people I knew I could save, and I didn't understand why all those, whining, teary, snotty people were screaming at me for doing what I was supposed to do. And now I know what it feels like to be sad and just the thought of my papa dying again is enough to rip my own heart out. Byleth glanced at Edelgard. And it's all because of you. Me. Yes, because you wanted me to be the professor of the Black Eagles. You wanted to become my friend and get closer to everyone. You gave me a reason to fight for that wasn't just a payment. Byleth buried her face in her arms again. You made me realize I could be a human and not a demon, and I paid you back by murdering you. I guess I'll just always be a demon. Oh. Edelgard really wasn't sure what to say to that, instead choosing to move closer to her. She felt Byleth stiffen for a moment, and begin to lean over, only to catch herself. If I may, what exactly causes us to be on different sides? Kronia killed my papa. And when it came down to choosing between Rhea and you, all I could think of was him. I didn't even make a choice, I just let you get away. So they continue to ruin things for me, even outside of this life. Byleth laughed there, a bitter sound that echoed in the small space. They seem to do that. I blamed them for everything, in the end. And I gutted that bastard Thales over and over again in a moment of stupid sadism that just made everything worse, so, if you get the chance, when you go after him, just take his head. He can't call down those javelins if he doesn't have a head. Or at least I hope that's the case. I will take your advice under due consideration, she replied, injecting a bit of humor into her voice. Byleth's laugh that time was more amused, and she considered that a small victory. If you want more advice, then get Hanuman and Lindhart to start working on your crests. They were able to help Lysithea, so they should be able to help you, Byleth noted. Oh, and if you can, help Happy. An Agarthan experimented on her in the kingdom, so now she can summon demonic beasts. Lady, no, Byleth. I appreciate that you have a great many things on your mind, but could we please have a conversation without several issues being brought up at once? I am having some difficulty keeping everything straight. Oh, sorry, would it help if I wrote it all down? Perhaps. How much do you know of me anyway? Did I tell you my own history? Enough that I'm starting to wonder if you're comfortable being in a dark, enclosed space like this. Yes, actually. I have fonder memories of this hideaway that I am leaning on to avoid those issues. Oh, right, you told me that when we stayed the night after your coronation. Byleth mumbled as she remembered the story Edelgard told her of her siblings. You used to hide in the secret passageways when playing. It was one of the few memories you could remember of them. My other self really did trust you. Up until I betrayed her, at least. Byleth reached into her shirt, and pulled out a familiar pendant. You know, she also gave me this as a present. She did. During the battle in the tomb, the chain got cut. By the time I found it again, the pendant had been crushed. So, thank you for this. I see, if I am being honest, I imagine she had purer intentions than I did. I meant it as a symbol, a veiled threat to say I was going to be putting a chain around your neck once I had won. Oh. Byleth shifted slightly, feeling her face warm for some weird reason. What? Just thoughts. I still appreciate the gift. I hope we never have to fight. I think I would prefer that as well. And I promise I won't place a chain around your neck anytime soon. Well, I wouldn't mind that much, Byleth mumbled. Do you want me to address your comment? And no, thank you. Edelgard simply nodded, already used to similar comments thanks to Monica. Anyways, so you told Dorothea about your plans. I didn't in your time. No, she was still your closest friend, but, if it wasn't for me, she likely would have joined your side when you declared war on the church, Byleth admitted. The two of us regretted having to fight against you the most. Even after it all, she still kept calling you Edie. Edelgard let out a slow sigh. I let Monica die, didn't I? What? She was replaced by Kronia, but, what do you mean you let her? I knew about Monica's abduction and I knew what the Agarthans intended. I knew, and if it weren't for the exact, right circumstances occurring, with Shay killing that bandit Costas and Jaritsa becoming the new professor, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to rescue her. I wouldn't have taken the opportunity to rescue her. I would have let one of my most loyal friends die for the sake of my ambitions. She let out a slow sigh, nodding to herself. I knew I would, just as I knew that I don't deserve her affection. I didn't know that. So you don't know everything about me then, Edelgard commented, faintly amused despite the situation. I don't think you can really know everything about someone else. And, you just mentioned how you're different from the Edelgard I knew. You saved Monica. Only because it was convenient. You are proof that if it wasn't, you still rescued her, you made the decision to save her. It just goes to show how much you care. Besides, I'm sure that both of us know that storming in Bear with only a few classmates and the knights assisting you isn't convenient and quite the gamble. Byleth smiled. You care far too easily, and are way too honest for your own good. I suppose we can agree to disagree. Is there anything else you wish to say? Do you still like sorbet? I want something sweet. Despite herself, Edelgard couldn't help but laugh. Standing up, the Emperor offered her a hand. Very well, the finest sorbet we can offer. Staring up at her, Byleth hesitantly reached up. She almost pulled her hand back before the Emperor grabbed it to lift her up. Despite everything, she couldn't help but smile. Chapter 29, Sweetness. What the hell happened? Shay grumbled under her breath as she glared angrily at the pair of ladies she was technically supposed to be guarding. Specifically, she was glaring straight at a certain ashen demon, who wasn't paying her any attention at all as she happily ate sorbet and drank a sweet tea with the Emperor of Adrestia. Edelgard couldn't stand her about an hour ago, how the hell are they friends now? I know, right? Her Majesty has never invited me to have sorbet. Monica couldn't help but fume as she watched over the scene. Specifically focusing on Edelgard as she savored every taste of the sorbet. That's not, never mind. Seriously though, how do you go from bashing someone in the face with a shield to being all buddy-buddy? Wait, what happened? Monica asked, unaware of what occurred at the training grounds. Oh hey, Edie and Biley are getting along. Dorothea noted as she approached the two, a smile on her face. Huh? You know the Ashen Demon, Dorothea. Her name is Byleth, Shezi. And yes, I'm sure you remember Lethe, Dorothea said, getting Shay to pause as she recalled the commoner Dorothea was hanging out with. Wait, that was her. Yup. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm going to see if I can join them, Dorothea responded, walking over to the Emperor and Archbishop. Judging by the fact that both Edelgard and Byleth smiled at her appearance and she was soon seated along with them, the answer was a resounding yes. She's even getting Lady Dorothea on her side, Monica muttered, her envy obvious. That's just not fair. Yeah, I know what you. That should be me getting to enjoy sweets with both of them. Shay didn't know why she expected more from Monica. You know you could just ask to join them, right? I can't just join them without them asking me. Monica responded, saying this loud enough for Byleth to glance over at them. Ah, Monica, General Shay, do you want to join? Oh, I'll gladly join. Monica replied, her scowl instantly turning into a smile as she moved to sit down. Well, now I don't have anyone to complain with, Shay muttered, frowning while failing to register that she had been asked to join as well. I really am glad to see that you two are getting along, Dorothea began, smiling at the pair. I was hoping you could be friends. Well, if nothing else we came to an understanding after a necessary conversation, Edelgard stated, as she glanced over at Byleth. MMHM. Byleth nodded along, focusing on her sorbet. We managed to get things out in the air. So I don't have to worry about any fighting in the future? Dorothea asked, giving Edelgard a very deliberate glance, prompting the Emperor to take a sip of her tea to avoid scrutiny. Byleth, meanwhile, misunderstood who that pointed question was directed towards. Why yeah, I think everything should be good. Alright. Edelgard tried not to sigh. Yes, I don't plan on getting into a fight with the Archbishop anytime soon. Even a spar might be ill-advised, given how you reacted last time. I could, maybe handle it better? It's just, the weapons, and the hostility, she shook her head. So. Could someone else bring up a topic? Oh, well. Pardon me, Lady Dorothea, Monica interrupted, but, in the interest of our newfound friendship between our sides, Lady Byleth, perhaps you could go into some detail about the war you foresaw in your visions? So we could, prevent it from happening. Money, really? Byleth didn't notice Dorothea's exasperation, instead just frowning in thought. Well, the problem is, as I mentioned to Edelgard, I actually have a gap in my visions, between the start of the war and its conclusion 5 years later, though from my understanding it was a really long-lasting stalemate, for some reason. Edelgard raised an eyebrow. Is there a reason why you included, for some reason, in your statement? Oh, hey, you noticed. Byleth seemed oddly happy about that. Yeah, I don't really understand how you could have let the war go on for 5 years. You have the largest army with the best weapons and logistical support. Sure, you declared a war on 2 fronts and that split your forces, but from what I remember, most of the kingdom was already under your control, or at least Agarthan control, so they shouldn't have been nearly as much of a problem as they were if the Agarthans weren't incompetent at holding the territory. Add in how the alliance was split between nobles that supported you and nobles that opposed you, and you should have been able to take advantage of their issues to bring them under control without it taking years. Byleth tilted her head, fully considering the logistics of what a proper invasion would have looked like. I think one issue is that you didn't go after targets that were soft enough. The resistance made up of former members and staff from the church used Garreg Mach as a staging ground, but you should have been able to roll over us relatively easily if you actually focused your forces our way instead of sending in that Randolph guy. Though I guess that turns back to the issue of having multiple fronts. Either way, I think the best move would have been to take Garreg Mach early in the war, then fortify your western flanks to avoid invasion from Faerghus before turning your personal attention to Leicester. Another issue though is that I did kind of take the Eagles with me when I started working with the church, so what would be your elite units were on my side. Still, the point being is that holding Garreg Mach from the start would have given you a good position to invade Faerghus and Leicester from. Then you press the attack into Leicester, use your influence with lords like Gloucester to push in, then seize Durdrew. You probably would have needed to kill or capture Claude to fully break the resistance there, but once House Regan falls, the other great lords would be too scattered to actually fight you. Regan and Gloucester are the 2 biggest territories and they take up most of the middle of Leicester, so it would basically make coordinating a counter-attack impossible. Now assuming you do have an admittedly terrible regent governing Faerghus for you, it's just a matter of mopping up the pockets of resistance. Without that though, you'd still be able to win fairly handily once Leicester is out of the picture because the kingdom as it currently is definitely couldn't withstand a full invasion from the Empire. You'd probably be best off taking the western regions under your control first though, since they're generally the bigger food producers while houses like Galatia are prone to famine. Now if Dimitri's actually competent, you might have a more difficult fight on your hands, but in my time he was essentially feral, so you could probably just take the field and put a line of spears in front of you and he'd run right into them. Kind of like a boar, actually. I wonder if that's why Felix called him that. Byleth paused, then noticed everyone at the table was staring at her. Sorry, did I say something weird? No, I just didn't expect you to be a tactician, Monica admitted. Byleth shrugged. There's a reason the Black Eagles were unbeatable when I was teaching them, the Archbishop admitted, not noticing the odd look on Dorothea's face. The songstress took a sip of tea, trying to think about everything she just heard. She thought she knew most of the details behind Byleth's visions at this point, but Byleth had just let a few extra details slip there that painted a very strange picture. Should I ask? I don't want to corner her, but the implications were hard to ignore. If Byleth saw herself teaching the Black Eagles, which put her earlier admission of how things were supposed to go near Remire in a different context, then she should have met Dorothea. She'd been at the monastery before Shay arrived, so if Byleth would have arrived at the same time, she wouldn't ask right now. She didn't want to ruin the mood, but it was something she was going to keep in mind. Setting down her teacup, she sighed as she looked away, before pausing as she saw Rhea looking at the group from a window. The former archbishop seemed to stiffen at her gaze, mentally debating ducking out of sight, before she just nodded at Dorothea, like she approved of her perceptive abilities. Hey Biley, your aunt is spying on us from the window up there. Huh. Byleth immediately looked, making Rhea jolt before actually ducking out of view. Of course she is. Hubert's in the next window over. So he was. And he didn't bother hiding, just maintaining his gaze like a watchful gargoyle that liked the color black too much. Edelgard, who had been quiet for the past minute or so out of the dawning realization that her other self was blatantly an idiot for ever allowing Byleth to use her talents against her, let out a sigh as she came to another epiphany. Of course Rhea is your version of Hubert. Everything makes sense now. I don't know, I would think Seath would be Ria's version of Hubert, right? You're the Archbishop now, remember? Besides, from my experience, Seath isn't nearly as violently protective. Oh no, did Ria threaten you? Byleth asked, not really sounding upset so much as exasperated. Yes, but I'm willing to let it slide if you agree to ignore Hubert's inevitable attempt at intimidation. I was planning to do that already, don't worry. Just make sure he doesn't try to poison me or anyone on my retinue. I like Hubert but, well. Yes, I have an idea of how Ria would react. If he poisoned you, I would ensure no one finds his body, Suthis chimed in, and while Byleth appreciated the sentiment, she wasn't about to mention that out loud. Still, it felt nice having so many people be protective of her. Geralt let out a slow sigh, feeling his age catching up to him as he took in what he just heard. A part of him wondered if he should blame the Agarthans for making him have to check the palace defenses, the Imperials for not having proper defenses, or the retinue for not keeping an eye on his daughter. So, she's okay, right? He asked as he glanced at the Ashen Wolves, who had the decency to look ashamed, or at least awkward, since they hadn't been nearby to help when the Emperor sent his daughter into a panic attack. Yes, from what I saw it seems she's actually spending time with the Emperor and her friends, Yuri responded. And she apparently was kicking ass before everything went down, Balthus said, thinking that would help. Based on Geralt's glare, it didn't. Yeah, that was our bad for not keeping an eye on her, Happy admitted. But worry not. We shall endeavor to make up for our mistake, even if we will need to work on keeping Lady Ria safe as well due to her recent arrival, Constance noted, before wilting for a moment when Geralt looked at her. We will of course focus on protecting Lady Byleth above all others. Especially since it seems very unlikely that I will actually get to be the Southern Bishop, so I will be able to focus my efforts on her protection. You didn't need to add all of that, Coco. But I should be clear, should I not? Right. Sighing again, Geralt stood up. I'm willing to trust you since you're Byleth's friends, but you guys better not mess up again. With his piece said, Geralt left the room and marched out to find the former Archbishop. Who was easy enough to find given how she was spying on Byleth. She was trying to be subtle about it since she was wearing normal priestess robes and a habit, but he could recognize her easily enough. Nobody else around here had hair that exact shade of green, after all. What are you doing? Ensuring that Thug doesn't hurt Byleth, Ria stated, keeping her gaze steady and only slightly stiffening from Geralt's sudden appearance. Are you calling the Emperor a thug? Geralt asked, glancing over Ria's shoulder and spotted Byleth doing some light exercise, alongside some other people. One of whom he recognized as that Shay kid, who seemed intent on one-upping Byleth all the while. There are many thugs. Ria, can we talk for a moment? About what? I'm not going to make you stop spying, but we should at least talk, Geralt said, prompting Ria to look up at him. Very well, go ahead. Look, I know we don't like each other and we have our problems that we'll likely never get over. But Byleth was almost assassinated, and there's everything going on with the people she used to know. So we'll need to work together. Oh good, you've finally accepted the reality that I only wish the best for Byleth, she replied, unimpressed. Will you stop attempting to argue my every decision now? Depends. Are you gonna stop acting like you would have raised my kid better than I did? I never said that. You were happy to imply it. I would have had many issues raising her. Which would have only been abetted thanks to the staff who could have helped, Ria admitted, offering an olive branch. Though I might have been able to offer her some stability in the monastery, I doubt I would have been as comforting as you. Thanks. He sighed. I do wonder sometimes if I made a mistake though. From everything I've heard, she was at her happiest when she was at Garreg Mach. That was likely because of the friends she made there. It was certainly not because of me, Ria admitted as she glanced back at Byleth, who was happily talking with her friends. Though if I had to make one comment, then it is that she deserves better than the Emperor. Issues with her aside, would you give anyone else the okay? No. He huffed, amused. Well, I guess it is traditional for at least one member of the family to disapprove of their kids' romantic choices. Guess that means I'm the laid-back one by default. Geralt, if you were laid any further back, you would be horizontal. Hey, there's still some people I'd prefer she didn't get with. Honestly, dating a royal or a noble sounds like it's far too much trouble. He crossed his arms over his chest. Besides, that young emperor out there made her cry enough times that I can't say she'd have my approval. Humph. To think our disapproval of her would be what unites us. Off with Byleth, Edelgard couldn't help but shiver as she felt a slight sense of dread, though that was common enough for her that she just disregarded it. Back with Geralt and Rhea, the old mercenary rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Well, we have time till the next official meeting, right? Yes, given everything that occurred, Edelgard said we should delay our next meeting so that Byleth may recover. I would almost give her credit for a good idea, were it not her fault. Well, that's good. Gives us time to figure out how to dig the screw in tight. Heh. You know, Geralt, I think we are well on our way to mending our friendship, Rhea said with a smirk. Edelgard was used to her nightmares. Even when she freed herself from Thales's crafted cage, the burden on her mind would be ever present. Still, once she was awoken from her slumber, she knew what helped calm her down. Opening the balcony, Edelgard stood out under the night sky as she let the cool air wash over her. It felt pleasant being back home, but no matter where she may be, being able to stare out at the night sky relaxed her. Leaning against the railing, she felt herself wondering when she should attempt to return back to sleep before noticing someone in the gardens like her, albeit with a cup of tea. Frowning, she decided to go back inside her room to dress in something modest before heading down to the gardens. Is there any reason why you're awake so late? Glancing over at the Emperor, Byleth seemed surprised to see her. Oh, Edelgard. I was just thinking about some old memories, Byleth replied, setting her tea down. While the drink had clearly started to cool down, Edelgard could still smell a note of citrus. Bergamot? That's not exactly the kind most would drink so late. One would think someone would have chamomile if they wished to sleep. Ah, I wasn't having trouble sleeping, Byleth murmured as she glanced at Edelgard, looking as though she wanted to say something but was unable to. The sight brought a small frown to the Emperor's face as a thought occurred. You also know about my nightmares, don't you? Why yes. I, patrolled the monastery grounds often at night. A habit from back when I was a mercenary, Byleth explained. I met a couple students some nights, most of whom I should have scolded for breaking curfew, but that technically wasn't part of my job. And that's how you found out about my troubles? Edelgard asked, sitting down with her. I think it was actually what prompted us to get closer, she admitted. It was the first time you let your walls down around me. It was also the first time you told me something about your past. The next time something like that happened, I found you outside already, staring up at the night sky. I imagine my other self already told you why that is. Yeah, it actually became a bit of a habit to meet you outside at night. So I guess being around you trudged up those old memories. We did? Edelgard asked. A part of her couldn't help but think that sounded scandalous. Yeah, Byleth responded, unaware of her thoughts. We'd just end up talking about whatever to pass the time. Especially when Kronia joined our class. It was the only time we could speak more freely since she tended to follow you around. I would imagine that was to keep an eye on me. Byleth nodded in response. It was annoying not being able to talk to you as much since she kept hanging around you, but she was a new student and I wanted her to feel welcomed. And the reason you're having tea this late at night is? Ah, well, I started to bring tea out to wait for you, since I was looking forward to our nightly chats. I even thought it would be a good idea to bring chamomile, but I'm not a fan of anything that makes me sleepy or drowsy. Yeah, I actually ended up oversleeping cause I drank the entire pot of chamomile to make sure it didn't go to waste, Byleth said, laughing at the memory. Afterwards though, I made sure to bring bergamot. I imagine my other self was delighted. Up until Seath found us outside one night and scolded us. What did he say? Byleth murmured as she tried to remember what the Chamberlain said. Ah, Professor, you should know better than to spend time with students after curfew. Now come along so I can scold you all night, Byleth recited, slightly exaggerating the final line. What she didn't expect was to hear Edelgard snort. "Ah, my apologies, that was unseemly. And no, it's okay. I didn't know you'd find that funny." "Yes, well, everyone has their own sense of humor," Edelgard defended herself, much like how everyone prefers different types of tea. "Ah, well, I never really had a preference for tea. I wonder if that's because I'm a Nabatean," Byleth said, smiling as she tried to crack a joke. Only to receive a blank stare in response. "Sorry. You get along with Eloise then. It's that obvious." "Remarkably. So what do you find funny? I imagine you can figure that out on your own." "Well, I think you like impressions? Because of how you laughed when I was copying Seath, right? A bit obvious, but yes. I have had a fondness for such things since I was a child. I'd often mock the various nobles that would come and go from the palace. PFT, that is funny to imagine. I didn't think that'd be the type of thing you'd like." You know, you have so much knowledge of me, yet I know practically nothing of you in comparison." "Ah, well, there isn't much to say. Prior to meeting all of you in the academy, I didn't really keep track of things. It was one mission after the other as far as I was concerned. The only things I really remember is training and fishing with Geralt." She huffed. "Even then, I feel like I only started enjoying it as a hobby when I got to the monastery. I want to say I liked it, but everything was just dull back then. Did being around us really help you that much?" "Geralt, he tried his best, but we were always on the move, running from Rhea. Or at least the idea of her. Add in the fact that he had a mercenary band to run and he couldn't spend all his time with me. Especially since he tended to drink in his off time too. Anyways, prior to me becoming a mercenary as well, there would be times when I wouldn't see him for days because he was busy on his mission. I think the longest was a month." Byleth muttered as she began to fiddle with her hair, the memory bringing up a hint of anxiety she didn't realize she'd felt at the time. "I actually began to wonder if Papa had left me there forever. I think I annoyed him a bit with how tightly I clung onto him when he came back. Either way, being at the monastery meant there were people I could see every day. People who actually relied on me, not just as a field commander, but as a teacher. People actually joined the Black Eagles because they wanted to spend more time around me. Me, of all people." Byleth laughed in disbelief. "It was new, but I enjoyed it. I actually found myself wanting to spend time with others. It's almost funny to think about, the demon becoming a human because of friendship." "Like a storybook," Edelgard murmured thoughtfully, "it would make for a decent one. Maybe I'll mention that to Seath. He writes stories. More future knowledge. No, it's really obvious when you spend any time around him at all. I think he started writing them for Flayn, but a few are actually published." She paused. I should check if Garreg Mach has a printing house. I know there's an area in the monastery for, oh, yeah, did Monica ever tell you about the printing press thing? Only that it was made with metal instead of wood blocks. I'm not the best at explaining these kinds of things, but it's something to make it easier to copy and make books and the like. The church kept plans that were nearly destroyed in the past, in fear that it would be used to spread misinformation and rumors. Still, if I'm going to make sure that the church and the empire works together, then we can't keep things hidden. Though we'll definitely need to make sure to teach commoners how to read and write if we want to help elevate them." Is there anything else the church kept hidden?" "Well, there is the black liquid, but that can actually be pretty dangerous. Not to mention it's something only in the kingdom apparently, so we haven't been able to test it." "Dangerous in what way?" Edelgard asked, half expecting it to be something about it being heretical or damaging to the soul. "Well, apparently it's really flammable and toxic, like setting alcohol on fire but worse. I don't think anyone can even drink it, so it sounds pretty worthless outside of being another weapon." She tilted her head, thinking. Maybe it could be used like exploding alcohol barrels? Explosives can be useful, but I don't like that poisonous aspect to it. Well, that was more understandable than she expected. It can't be burned for warmth. Nope, the fumes are toxic and apparently they spread really easily. I've been trying to look into any more records on it, though there aren't many. At least there are still some though. Imagine if the church decided to burn records instead of just tossing them into abyss. They throw books into the abyss? Edelgard asked, imagining a group of priests passing books along a line before throwing them into a deep hole. Ah, Abyss is a town under the monastery. Directly under it. Underground. At Edelgard's baffled look, Byleth tried her best to explain herself. It's, kind of a secret refuge for people who don't have anywhere else to go, but also can't just join the church for their own reasons, like hiding from enemies or being foreigners and pagans. Ones that aren't okay with joining the church like Shamir was, I guess. The, cardinal that was in charge of them, so, he kind of, this is awkward to explain, he tried to resurrect my mom from the dead, kill the wolves, and turned into a giant monster that we had to kill. I see, Edelgard replied, you seem to just draw strangeness to you, don't you? I guess. I mean, I didn't even meet Aelfric last time, so I guess he would have failed on his own. Well, the people are fine and getting more supplies these days. She smiled, some happiness bubbling up. I'm actually teaching some of the kids how to read and write. And a few of the adults, actually. I didn't expect to hear that the Archbishop would be teaching classes. Well, I haven't been able to do it as often since I became the Archbishop, but it's nice. I must admit, you certainly are far better than Rhea was as an Archbishop, Edelgard deliberately praised, thinking of how much the new Archbishop seemed to value her opinion. Byleth felt her face turn pink, proving Edelgard's thoughts correct. Oh, thank you. No need to thank me. Just keep this up, the Emperor requested as she stood, before glancing at Byleth. Perhaps next time you can bring 2 cups when you come out here. Will do. Edelgard couldn't help but note how cute, how earnest Byleth seemed at that moment, smiling so brightly that she just had to smile in return. Regardless, they had some time until their next official meeting. Perhaps she could use this time to get to know her. Chapter 30, Advice about Attraction. Byleth was starting to have some suspicions that Geralt and Rhea were up to something. She didn't know what they were up to exactly, but anytime she attempted to approach Edelgard to talk with her, one of them would appear to speak to the Emperor instead. The former wanted to talk about the palace's defenses while the latter wanted to discuss her planned reforms. She could understand why they wanted to talk to Edelgard about issues like that, but it was odd. Especially whenever any of her retinue dragged her away to talk about something so she couldn't just wait for them to finish. Speaking of. So, how are things going with your lady love, my friend? Yuri asked, catching her off guard from the sudden question. Why are you asking? Byleth asked, not looking up from the book she was reading. She really hoped she could stay quiet since she didn't want to be kicked out of the library. Well, we have been here for some time, and you've been spending a lot of time with that songstress. Or am I mistaken and it's actually the Emperor? We're friends. Just friends. Byleth couldn't help but frown as she closed her book. That's all I can ask for. Really, I'm lucky enough to have that with how much of a mess I've been. So that's it? Not going to try for more. I mean, they're not the same. Besides, I kissed you, right? She shifted slightly. Anne, shouldn't we talk about that? Well, if you want another one, I won't say no. Byleth felt her face go red before she raised the book and ducked her head, trying to hide her reaction. I meant, do you want, more than that? Being quite forward, aren't you? Yuri asked, getting a whimper from Byleth. Friend, you really need to work on your reactions. You keep making me want to pet you when you whimper like that. Don't. I am not a dog. Hey, some people are into that kind of thing. I imagine you would make a cute puppy. Use your words, holy lady. Why you like me, right? So, do you want to? Well, I am attracted to you, because you are completely adorable. As for liking, well, I can safely say I like you as a friend. Love, however, might be too strong of a word, if you're curious. Oh. Byleth couldn't help but feel a small sting of hurt there. What about you? Are you into me like that? Well, you're attractive. And you actually are a good friend. She took a little breath. So you don't want to date me? Date? Yuri blinked, then paused, and sighed. Right, that makes more sense. What makes more sense? Nothing, just reminding myself that you and I have different ways of thinking. Speaking of, aren't you still interested in a certain pair of Adrestian ladies? Right, Byleth ducked her head again, trying to think. I do want to, maybe? I am, attracted to them, and there's still those feelings from my past life, attraction is really tricky. It really isn't. What's tricky are the feelings that get churned up by attraction. Jealousy, lust, obsession, that sort of thing. And anxiety, of course, which I can tell you're already dealing with. He smiled. Are you worried you might turn into a heartbreaker here? I don't really know. They're not into me like that, at least. At the moment, sure, though you and the Emperor seem to be getting closer. That, and didn't you already go on a date with the pretty songstress? Kay kinda went on a rant about how I hated her friend during it. Oh, ouch, yeah, that usually doesn't go well. Did the date end there, or was she still up for spending time with you? She still spent some time with me, though. I also let it slip that I wanted to kiss her and she just kind of asked what and I pretended I didn't say anything. So she was nice enough to ignore your slip up. Huh? I guess that's one way to look at it. Be optimistic, holy lady. Ask her out again, see if she's into it, and if she isn't, no harm, no foul. Why yeah, alright, that's a good point. Thank you, Yuri. It's what I'm here for, friend. And with his piece said, Yuri settled in, watching his friend as she finished up her reading and wondering, all the while, why he had this strange feeling in his chest. Sighing, Dorothea stretched her arms over her head. She let out a faint noise as her shoulders popped, before settling back on the infirmary bed she was sitting on. Care to talk, or are you just passing the time? Manuela asked, glancing over to her from her desk. I don't mind, though I didn't expect to be having people playing hooky in the medical room of the Imperial Palace. I'm not playing hooky. I've just been thinking, Dorothea responded with a pout. About the new Archbishop. It's not every day that you meet someone who can supposedly see the future. Did she tell you something you didn't want to hear? She said that she never met me, but apparently she knows of my work in the future. Oh, that's odd. Apparently she met me, and I helped her out a fair amount. Quite strange that she met me but not you. Isn't it? Dorothea sighed. I think she did meet me, but she doesn't want to tell me, for some reason. And what reason would that be? Manuela inquired, raising a curious eyebrow at her protege. Well, if I was being optimistic, she could just have an enormous crush on me and have no idea how to approach things properly because of it. She grinned wryly, before sighing. More likely, something bad could have happened to me, and she doesn't want to say so. I was going to say that kind of worry is understandable, but really, worrying about what someone else saw in the future is pretty new to me. Or maybe she saw herself being much closer to you than you think and is worried you'll think she's a voyeur for peeking on you in the future. Dorothea rolled her eyes. Manuela, please be serious about this. Hey now, I'm always serious about matters of the heart. I know, and, well, she's made it obvious that she's interested, Dorothea responded, though I'm starting to think she might be worried that she went too fast since she hasn't made any moves on me ever since we went to eat together. Well, she is the type to get anxious. She might just be worried that she weirded you out or something. I mean, she's not that bad, right? Dorothea asked, before her mind drifted to the various incidents that had occurred around the easily startled and anxious young woman. I probably should have tried talking to her about that. Come now, here I thought I taught you better than leaving a cute girl worried for days on end. You did, I've just let it slip my mind. She let some things slip, so I've been trying to see if I can figure out what exactly she saw. Oh? And what exactly did she let slip? Manuela asked, eager for some gossip. Well, she apparently joined the Black Eagles, Dorothea said, not wanting to go into a full explanation. Which is odd since she claimed to have not met me. Hence why I'm worried about her not telling me what happened. Do you want my advice? Forget it. She blinked, surprised. Manuela. From what I've seen, Byleth is a decent person. Anxious and easily flustered, yes, but kind-hearted enough to praise me for helping her out in the future she saw. If you're in any actual danger, I think she would tell you. So if she hasn't, I wouldn't worry. She smiled. I'm pretty good at reading people, after all, and my intuition tells me she's a sweetheart. Dorothea refrained from mentioning her mentor's intuition hadn't really helped her in the field of romance thus far. Still, she did make a good point. I think I'll ask her. But if it's something she wants to forget, I'll let it go. I'd rather not scare off a cute girl that's interested in me, after all. Manuela glowered at her protege. Okay, now you're just bragging. As if you wouldn't, Dorothea shot back with a smirk as she got off the bed. Huffing, Manuela waved her off as Dorothea left. Now she just had to find the Archbishop. Which was easier said than done with how large the palace was. Dorothea certainly wanted a life of luxury, but she had to admit this amount of extravagance was a bit too much for her. She shuddered to imagine how long it would take to clean this place if it wasn't for all the staff around. At least they were all nice, even if she was paranoid about who around here was working for Hubie as a spy now. That aside, she was able to find someone to help her out, namely Bernadetta, who seemed to be hiding behind a corner as she peeped on someone. Hey Bern, what's up? Dorothea asked, probably smiling a bit too much as Bernadetta jumped with a start in a squeak she tried to muffle. Dorothea? What are you doing here? Trying to see what you're looking at, Dorothea said, glancing past the corner as well while Bernadetta let out a panicked noise. What she was looking at turned out to be a who not a what, as Dorothea found her looking at Byleth, who seemed to be chatting with Casper about something. Oh? Interested in our guest? And not like that. Bernadetta immediately tried to argue. She just told me some things so I was trying to figure out how to talk to her about it. And what did she tell you? Dorothea asked, a bit of worry surfacing for her friend. Especially since said friend stiffened and immediately looked away. It's nothing. Bernadetta said, not really fooling anyone. Just, Byleth is a really nice lady, okay? I won't disagree with that, she's been very nice in the time I've known her, she replied while subtly studying Bernadetta. A small smile crept up her lips. So what did you want to talk to her about? Did you get a crush on our guest? What? Bernadetta squeaked, her face immediately going red before she quickly covered her mouth, realizing that her voice had been a lot louder than she intended. Bernadetta. Loud enough to catch Byleth's attention, in fact. Are you okay? Yeah, what happened? Casper asked as well, following behind her as the two approached them. And nothing. Bernadetta squeaked in response, trying to make herself seem small. Are you sure? Byleth asked as she studied her. Did Count Varley do something again? And no. I actually haven't heard from him since he left. Okay, that's good, Byleth said, before reaching up and patting the archer on the head, which made her blush in response. Oh hey Dorothea, how's it going? Casper asked, making Byleth stiffen as she realized the songstress was there as well. It's going fine, Caspi. I was just talking with Bern here about, well, perhaps I should leave it up to her to say, she teased, making Bernadetta stiffen too, and that sight just made Dorothea giggle outright. Leave it to Bern to find a friend as anxious as she is. Actually, B. Byleth, want T to talk. T to you. P please. Bernadetta managed to say, her voice almost cracking as she did. Sure, of course, Byleth agreed as she pulled her eyes away from Dorothea, something that Bernie couldn't help but notice. Which, coupled with what Byleth had told her earlier about how Dorothea had died protecting her in her visions, and the obvious attraction she had going on there, Bernadetta found herself with the rather confusing experience of not really feeling jealous, but kind of intrigued. For some reason, pairing up Byleth and Dorothea actually kind of appealed to Bernie's brain. Kind of like reading a romance novel, except with real, actual people that she happened to find very attractive. "Bernie? You wanted to talk to me?" Byleth's voice cut through Bernadetta's thoughts and she stiffened again at the sudden attention. Alright, I wanted to say that, actually, I wanted to talk to you and Dorothea." "You did?" Dorothea asked, raising an eyebrow. "Why yes. In fact, we should talk. Over here, in this room," she decided, heading straight towards the nearest room as Byleth and Dorothea exchanged bewildered looks, before following after her. Wonder what that was all about. Casper, left behind, wondered to himself, before shrugging it off. Girls are weird. Bernadetta, meanwhile, had no real idea what she was doing as she led the pair towards the first door she spotted. Hopefully she guessed right and there was some kind of lounge or tea room on the other side. "So is there any reason why you want us to talk in a broom closet?" Dorothea asked after Bernadetta opened the door, not noticing how the purple-haired girl's face immediately fell. Because it's a private conversation that, can't be heard by anyone," she decided, glancing back at the two of them, "and you two should go in first." "Why?" Because you're bigger than me and I might get squished?" Honestly, that would probably be a pleasant way to die, but Bernadetta was leaving that thought aside for the moment. Okay then. Byleth just shrugged and went inside, prompting an amused huff from Dorothea as she watched the Archbishop casually push a bunch of brooms to the side. No hesitation at all, Well, if Bernie says it's important then it probably is, Byleth said while she cleared some space inside. Bernadetta did feel a small twinge of guilt at being trusted so easily, but she stayed strong as Dorothea gave an amused smile. Fine, Dorothea relented as she walked in. Well, it's gonna be a tight fit with Bernadetta and Dash. Sorry. I forgot I had to tell Casper something. Bernadetta shouted, before slamming the door closed. The quick patter of her feet let them know she ran away, leaving the pair in the dark closet. Bernie. Surprised, Byleth reached for the door to try and open it, only for it to stay closed. I think the door is stuck. Did she break it? I didn't think Bern was strong enough to do that. Well, you need to actually be strong to use a bow. Byleth muttered. Would Hubert be mad if I kicked down the door? It does look expensive, Dorothea muttered. Probably shouldn't risk it, Byleth decided, thinking it would be best to wait for Bernadetta to return. Though as she thought that, it dawned on her that she and Dorothea were stuck in a small room together. So, you were Edie's teacher in the time you saw? Why yeah. I taught her for about a year. I'm sure she must have been happy learning under you. Byleth bit her lip as she looked away. There's something I should tell you. About Edelgard that I didn't say before. Is this about how Edie dies? Dorothea asked, making Byleth stiffen before she slowly nodded. I already heard about it. I still don't know what to think about it, but you're not going to do something like that again, right? And no. I mean, yes. I am not. I don't want to hurt her. I had a feeling. Everything I've seen of you says to me that you're a sweet girl who wants to make sure everyone is going to be okay despite what your visions told you. Dorothea smiled. So I'm guessing that's why you don't want to tell me about what happened to me in the future you saw. Why yeah, Byleth admitted, feeling a tightness in her chest. I am sorry. She couldn't tell Dorothea it was her fault. That she let her guard down. That she had to bury her alongside Edelgard. It's okay. Though I hope my demise was at least poetically tragic instead of humiliating, she joked. It was awful. I don't think there's anything beautiful about someone dying. Especially not you. Then let's not talk about it, Dorothea decided, taking her mentor's advice. If you don't need to tell me to prevent it from happening, then just don't tell me. Just put yourself first, Okay. Dorothea quirked an eyebrow. That is what I tend to do. I'm not one for heroic sacrifices, Biley. You would surprise yourself. Oh, well, that is a surprise. Dorothea commented, feeling very curious about what she meant, though that feeling stopped as she saw how uncomfortable Byleth looked. Are you okay? Why yeah. It's just, talking about this is bringing up memories, Byleth admitted, unable to look at Dorothea. Well, it's a good thing it's dark in here, Dorothea said, trying to joke with a small laugh. But, on the topic of subject changes, how long do you think Bernadetta is going to be gone? I'm not sure. Maybe we should try to force the door open. I can try it, if you don't mind giving me some space. Don't know how much I can give, but go ahead, Dorothea said, pressing up against a wall as Byleth moved to aim her leg at the door. She also did her best to ignore her arm pressing up against Dorothea because she really didn't need distractions at the moment. And so, with a grunt of exertion, Byleth kicked the door, managing to knock it off its hinges. Wow, didn't expect you to be able to do that. Well, at least the door doesn't seem damaged? Actually, are those gold hinges? No wonder they broke first. Why is that? Dorothea couldn't help but ask as she looked at the broken hinges. Gold is easy to bend, so you shouldn't be making stuff out of it, unless it's ornamental. You know, like a fancy sword that's a mantelpiece, Byleth explained as she picked the door back up. It's also pretty heavy, so if you try to use it as an actual weapon you get something you can't swing easily, and can bend if you hit something wrong. It's why you only see nobles with stuff like that, because they're not smart enough to know it's a bad idea. PFT, wow, not one to mince words, It's the truth. It's kinda like the age-old adage of, a knight in shining armor hasn't seen combat. Really? Yeah, armor is very tough to keep and maintain. Someone who's been in combat is going to have their armor covered in dents, scratches, and dirt, she explained while putting the door back in place and trying to make sure it looked presentable. Why do you think the Empire's armor is black? Sure, they might give a fancy reason for it, but black armor and clothes means it's easy to hide damage and stains. It's why I wore dark clothes when I was a mercenary. It's actually kind of annoying that the Knights of Syros have white armor, since they want to keep the image of being holy knights, but also you're just making it more difficult to maintain and keep it clean. Doesn't help that they just throw away stuff because it starts to get old. I wouldn't be surprised if they just bought new armor because they couldn't be bothered to clean it. Even though, hey, you can remove rust easily enough, and repairing a weapon doesn't take much, so it just seems like they're being lazy, which I'm definitely going to work on changing. Okay, wow, you have much stronger opinions on this topic than I expected. Byleth paused, before letting out a little nervous laugh. Yeah, well, I was a mercenary, so I keep these things in mind. No, I get it. Like I said, I grew up a commoner, so even nowadays I find myself thinking about how much it will cost for a meal. It's why I like dating knights. Chivalry means they'll pay for me. That's smart. I guess since I'm the Archbishop, I don't really have the excuse to get people to pay for me. Dorothea raised an eyebrow, amused. Biley, you're the Archbishop. I guarantee you could get free food from most businesses. But, I should still pay for it. Biley, from one commoner to another, use what they have willingly given you. You're the Archbishop. If you don't use the benefits of the position, then what's the point? Byleth almost argued that there were plenty of reasons for her to be the Archbishop right now, but she didn't want to argue with a rhetorical question. Especially when she had a better idea. Well, do you want to benefit from a free meal? Sure, if you're asking. Though mind if I ask one more question? Dorothea asked as Byleth patted the door, checking to see if it would stay steady. Were you serious about wanting to kiss me? Yes, Byleth immediately responded, before blushing when the words fully registered. I mean, only if you want to. Hell, let's see how dinner goes first, Dorothea said, watching Byleth fidget with a little smile. Oh okay. Byleth murmured, before stiffening when she felt a quick peck on her cheek. As thanks for helping me get out, Dorothea teased before she began to walk away, expecting Byleth to follow. Byleth, meanwhile, raised a hand to her cheek, staring at Dorothea. It shouldn't have been possible, but it felt as if her heart skipped a beat. A small smile spread across her face before she happily followed after Dorothea, eager to try for a second date. Who knows, maybe this time she could get a kiss on the lips. The next morning, Byleth found herself staring at the ceiling of her bedroom and contemplating the nature of existence. Well, no, that wasn't quite accurate. In part because she hadn't been staring at the ceiling when she woke up, instead, she had been snuggled up close to a soft, warm cushion that she soon realized happened to be a certain beautiful songstress, who also happened to be naked. Much like Byleth was. Check the description for the links to the author.